Hello, YouTube. So you may have heard that combat add-ons are dead in Midnight and that Blizzard is bringing everything in-house. They're making massive sweeping changes to combat in general, encounter design, and they're removing add-ons which are going to help you tackle these fights. And that is partly true. Partly, it's a bit of misinformation because Blizzard is not fully removing all combat add-on capabilities. They're just limiting add-ons in their ability to, and speaking of misinformation, I'm not a tech guy here, but from my understanding from what Ian said, they are limiting the ability for combat add-ons to sort of reach into the inner workings of the fight. You're going to still be able to customize the display of information and how that is presented to you on your screen with different add-ons, but you're not going to be able to like pre-assign debuff timings and positions and stuff to different players and pre-assign markers because you're not going to have access to that kind of information. So something like Fractalus won't be possible anymore to be solved by a weak aura where the debuff goes out, you get targeted, a little icon appears above your head and just tells you go stand on triangle, and you go okay, and you don't really think about anything else on the fight. So that sort of design, like that kind of add-on design, is no longer going to be available. But that doesn't mean combat add-ons are being completely killed off in their entirety. You'll still be able to move and display information in a way that you might prefer with the use of add-ons. Now, some add-on developers are taking this in their stride. Bigwigs, for example, they're looking at one of the timeline reminders. They're looking to improve. So on the left-hand side is the new Blizzard version where spells are just going to descend or ascend depending on how you set it up. And they're going to tell you what's incoming and when. And you can see the overlap there, which I actually really like this because I can visually see the difference much easier in this kind of format. It's a bit Guitar Hero-y, and it just works better for my brain because I can see, like, right, these are very close to one another. Some people prefer this bar system that Bigwigs has had for a while, where they're ticking down by duration. You can see them incoming, and you're also watching the bars rather than necessarily the proximity of the spells to one another in when they're going to be actioned. So Bigwigs are working on add-ons and improving that and working with that. However, some add-on developers like Weak Auras are just calling it a day. O7s, they are done. They could continue to develop non-combat add-ons if they wanted to, because all of the non-combat add-ons are remaining in the game, as long as the developers want to develop them. But I guess Weak Auras just feel like that's not going to be something that they want to do. Maybe it's not worth their time. Fair enough. So there will be a bit of a shake-up with add-on development. I'm sure wherever there are gaps, they will be filled by new, hopeful add-on developers. So, yeah, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of people dooming about this. There's a lot of people unsure of what's actually coming in Midnight, the improvements that Blizzard are making to the default UI. That's what I want to talk about in this video. Go through some of these elements and talk about the things that you're going to be able to customize in Midnight so far. Now, I will say, as much as I am interested and excited to see these improvements to the base game by Blizzard, taking responsibility for the design of their game and improving visuals and whatnot, it is very bare bones, and they desperately need to sink more time into this and improve it drastically. I don't think there's a single, like, combat system here, UI-wise, that doesn't need improvements in some way, shape, or form. So I'm going to show these off and talk through them for you. So as I mentioned, you have the combat timeline. You are going to be able to customize this with, like, you know, icon size of the actual element, whether you want it to be going right to left to right, vertical, horizontal, etc. You're going to be able to show tooltips, timers, names of abilities. So there's a bit of customization here. There's not mega amounts, but it's also a combat timeline. I don't know how much customization you need in something like that. They're adding in a damage meter, default, baseline. So in alpha and stuff, hopefully very, very soon, we will have this working. It's currently not implemented correctly, so although it's there, it doesn't work for anybody. So we need that desperately so that we can properly test some of the other parts of the game, specs and damage and stuff like that going on right now to help with tuning and design and eventual improvements there. So that's that. Damage meter coming, combat timeline coming. Then we have the cooldown, buff tracker, uh, cooldown, yeah, utility cooldown tracker as well. So we've got these elements here. Now, Luxthos is another person who is working really hard to make make the Blizzard stuff as close to what he's used to with add-on design as much as he possibly can. And he's gotten very close, I think. So the way you can track some of these, so you can, so again, you can change the visibility of some of these. You can change sort of how these are being tracked and presented. But then if you go into the options menu, so this is where all the gameplay enhancements are being housed. You have things like click casting, which is going to allow you to macro buttons to your like different binds, so you can preset different abilities, different binds. You can also have mouse over casting default, which I actually really want to enable that. But you have mouse over casting as well, so that's like very helpful, something that healers really like in particular. Then you have the rotation assistant, that's partly related here. You have combat warnings, which I spoke about, that's the timeline. So you can enable that. Then you have cooldown manager. So cooldown manager is what I was just talking about a moment ago, where you're tracking all your buffs and whatnot. And this is where you're going to have some flexibility in what you feel you want to track or not. And it's a super simple system of just drag and drop in what you actually are interested in, and you can put them into different categories. Right now, I don't know if Blizzard's going to allow you to create new categories or whatnot. There's just essential cooldowns and utility cooldowns, and you can just drag and drop things. So let's say I have an essential cooldown. Thrash has a 6-second cooldown now, so maybe I want to place it there. You can also place its position. So let's say you want to like put your most important cooldowns on the left-hand side or something. You can drag and drop those there. So you can align things how you want. You can increase or decrease the size of these elements as well. So you can drag and drop whatever you want here and do that. But again, you can't add new categories. That would be kind of nice if you could maybe split things up, but you still wanted to track them and move them around a bit better. You've got the buff tracker here on the right-hand side and here in the middle of the screen as well. So this, again, is what buffs you want to track when they are active or when they proc. And then you want things to track like a cooldown window, like how long left do I have of Berserk? Well, you can drag it here into the track bar, and then you can track that, and when I press Berserk, it's just going to give me... I mean, I think it's quite cute. The design of it I actually really like. It's like Blizzard standard design. I do like it. So you do have this already. Now, this cooldown manager is already in the War Within, so you can go use it right now if you want to. However, this cooldown setting system is being added, I guess, closer to midnight, or maybe in midnight itself. So this will only become available later down the line. And then finally, we have nameplates. So nameplates, I have been playing around with these a little bit. Default nameplates for Blizzard, like UI, are just terrible. They're atrocious. I am somebody who doesn't really... I don't really play with add-ons generally. I'm forced to use them for my raiding guild, but generally, I don't use them. I play a lot of default, and even I do not use default Blizzard nameplates because they're that bad, and they haven't really been improved over the years. Finally, we're getting some improvements, though it does need work. It's not enough. You don't have enough customization here. It just isn't enough, but it's a good start for early alpha. So again, you can increase the size and buff scale and like that kind of thing. You also have style. Now, this isn't just like how it looks necessarily. This is going to also... this isn't just like a change in border. This is actually going to change its sort of design style, which is quite important. You might want bigger bars. You might want thinner bars. You might want like cast bar. So for example, you might want the cast bar to actually be the biggest emphasized part of the element so that you can very easily see cast coming through. So there's some good stuff here with this. It does change the design of it a little bit when you do use this. Then you have nameplate information, so you can track health and whatnot. There you can have cast bar stuff, so you can import, you can highlight important casts specifically, so you'll get a little glow. Again, is that going to be very visible? I don't know. Maybe that needs to be improved a little bit there. You can have all of these enabled or none of them enabled, etc. What's really cool is that you can have the target of the spell cast on now. So if you're getting targeted, you can see. If you see somebody else getting double targeted, you can see. It says their name and then it's highlighted in their class color, which could be kind of confusing if you have, let's say you do a dungeon where you bring 3 Ret Paladins. God forbid, I wouldn't wish that on anybody, but let's say you have 3 Ret Paladins. It's going to be so confusing who's getting targeted because you're just going to see a pink name, and in confusion, you might not necessarily see whose name it was. So there's that. You then have aggro display where you can show like different aggro sort of displays there. You then have mob display of the enemy's buffs, the enemy's buffs are on the left-hand side of the nameplate. Your utility, so group CC, is on the right-hand side of the enemy. So if I use an in-cap roll right now, you can see on the right-hand side, that's where you're tracking CCs, tracking buffs on the left-hand side, and then you're tracking your own debuffs above the target. Now, in open world combat, you can see everybody's debuffs. And currently, that's not a setting that you can disable from what I've seen. Like, I've struggled to find a disabler for that. So, you are just seeing everybody's debuffs in the open world, which is kind of funny. So, there's some customizations there. That's most of what you're seeing at the moment. That's most of what you are getting with these nameplates. Again, it needs work. It's not all the way there yet, but it's a good start. I think that's pretty much every change there. So we're getting improvements to nameplates. We're getting this cooldown manager customization, better customization there in what you want to track. We are getting a built-in damage meter, and we are getting a timeline, a combat timeline. So that's what we've got at the moment. I would like to see additional improvements. So it is nice to track your buffs up in the middle of your screen here. If you're someone like me who's truly cursed, I actually track my procs and my buffs, like Sudden Ambush and Blood Talons when we did have it. I track them top right of my screen, which is cursed, but it's made even more cursed by the fact that you'll have a lot of clutter here and you can't edit it out. You can't choose what is tracked up here in the top right. So when you want to track a debuff, or sorry, you want to track a buff, it's hard to do so because it's telling you that you've got 100% increased experience in Wrath of the Lich King reputations. And you're like, why do I need to know that right now in this dungeon or this raid? So I would like some customizations there. Debuff frame stuff, I don't know if there needs to be improvements there or not. But if you guys have any comments there, please feel free to add them. We have the critical warning system, medium warning system, stuff like that here, which is pretty good. I have been using it in combat, and it is quite visible, I would say. So that is also good. Now, Blizzard have said, this is just more generally speaking in terms of like the encounter design. I had an interview with Dylan Barker, who is the lead encounter designer for raids, dungeons, and delves, and he said that they are looking to improve visual clarity in general. You're going to be trying to spend a lot more time looking at the boss. So what would be really nice would be to have like boss chat bubbles that appear, so you can very easily see when a boss says a name, says something like, "I am now going to hit you with my right arm." Then you can see in a chat bubble above the boss. I think that's already like somewhat in the game to some degree, but I would like to see more of that. If it's not, I'm trying to think. I know it's in Final Fantasy 14. I don't know if it's in WoW, but I would like to see that if not. So boss trap bubbles displaying what they're going to be doing next. Good sound cues so that they're actually kind of telling you as well, and you can listen out for those things. So yeah, I guess shout out to like the flippin' like deaf community and maybe visually impaired community. I don't know. There's a lot of communities out there, but shout out to them who I know they're worried about combat add-ons and their removal potentially making things a lot more challenging for them in combat. I don't think that's Blizzard's intent to make things harder for them. I think we need to see the encounter design because maybe a lot of this stuff is going to be either visually improved, audio improved, that is going to help people in these situations with these different ailments. So definitely give feedback. Definitely try and get that to the devs. and that's something that I've taken note of personally. To something, if I get to chat to a dev, probably talk about that. But I do know that Dylan Barker has said, look, we're looking to improve this stuff. That wasn't directly in relation to a question about, you know, the deaf community, visually impaired community, etc. But I have faith that they're going to try and make improvements there. So I wanted to include that, I guess, as well. Blizzard doesn't have long to do all of these changes. I think that's the biggest concern right now. They're trying to do everything all at once with this combat design, like redesign and everything. I think it's a massive undertaking, and I am just worried that they're not going to get enough customization and enough information display quickly enough. But I'm hopeful. I'm partly looking forward to the removal of some combat add-ons, because you go and do a boss like Fractalus and it's ZZZ. Fractalus is a really bad example, though, because it was, I think, intentionally designed so that people would have a vendetta against weak auras. But, yeah, I would like to see new, interesting boss design that is a lot more collaborative in real time with your team, figuring out where to go. There are plenty of really cool combat designs that you could have. I kind of want to make a separate video on that, of a bunch of different combat designs that you can have that are more puzzle-based, more coordinating solutions and synergizing with your team. That isn't just like, I go and stand on triangle because my add-on told me to. And hopefully, maybe, it'll make World of Warcraft players better gamers. Alright, I thought I'd end the video with a joke. Guys, thanks very much for watching. Hopefully this has been useful in displaying some of these combat add-ons and stuff, and like how things are going to be changing and improving and whatnot. Let me know in the comment section anything you want to see next, anything you have to say about these combat add-ons being removed and whatnot. Let's have a fight. Come fight me in the comment section. Love you. Thank you for watching. Bye-bye.